Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech, live on Twitch. Let's hope the bandwidth can save itself in a second. Weirdest thing, I was going to try to see if I could stream off of my phone's hotspot today to mix it up a bit, and the speeds varied so heavily that I don't even want to try that now. I think Starlink's a bit more stable. Yes, I want new iPads too. I'm right there with you. We just got to wait a couple weeks. We got 2 more weeks. We'll get some mini LED iPad Pros, and let's hope that the price does not uncontrollably shoot up, because that would suck. But yeah, something that was interesting today, I'm debating whether or not I want to do an actual tech video on it, is about this FCC filings they're doing with StarLink. Basically, they're already toying around with the idea of letting Starlink be mounted and start working on vehicles in motion, which there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of speculation on what that could end up being. Yeah, this stream is through Starlink. It was going to be through Mint, but then their connection was even more of a variable than Starlink's was. Starlink was actually more stable, believe it or not. But yeah, these FCC filings are interesting because, well, first of all, people have been speculating for the longest time that Elon had planned on bringing Starlink to support Tesla vehicles, just because people figured, like, okay, Tesla's already selling all of these vehicles that have internet access, that utilize the internet. They don't need it necessarily, which I think is a overhyped use case of 5G I see thrown around, especially by carriers quite often. They all like making the claim that 5G is going to make autonomous driving possible, even though pretty much all car companies, especially ones working on autonomous driving software, have kind of agreed that you're going to have to find ways of processing and driving vehicles all independently. They can't rely on an internet connection. But for whatever reason, people just thought for either streaming music or watching movies or just watching content or consuming content within the vehicle that you would use Starlink. But Elon has said so many times the same thing. But he said it again recently because people were obviously curious. If you're changing the filings to work on moving vehicles, doesn't that eventually mean Teslas? So basically, this article from CNBC went up, said SpaceX wants to connect its Starlink satellite internet work to moving vehicles. So that has a bunch of people like, oh, okay, Tesla SpaceX collab. This is finally happening. He responded to this about 20 hours ago. He said, not connecting Tesla cars to Starlink, as our terminal is much too big. This is for aircrafts, ships, large trucks, and RVs. So maybe it's the wording we should pay attention to when he says large trucks and he says not cars. I don't know where the Cybertruck falls in that, but what is exciting about this is, especially for people who plan on using internet or need internet services on like cruise ships or on the ocean and that type of thing, because there's a lot of people that typically travel by boat, or some people just live on boats for extended periods of time, and of course they have to resort to satellite internet. You can't run fiber optics out into the ocean. That doesn't really work. But Starlink kind of changes the game for all satellite internet, because nothing really can compete or compare to the speed Starlink is offering, and the end goal, of course, is to have global coverage, basically. So the idea of being able to attach one of these little Starlink terminals onto a boat or even an aircraft could result in Wi-Fi on planes even getting a lot better. Because right now it's, of course, also satellite internet based. You can't really do cell towers because the planes are too far away, and you really can't do fiber optics or coax because it's a vehicle, it's in motion. That's not going to work. So satellite is all you can really go off of, and that's why internet on planes has always resulted in somewhat spotty connection or not very fast, is because you're sharing it with like 100 other people on this big metal tube flying through the sky, but at the same time all of the internet that the plane is receiving has to come from one satellite, so you can't get a ton of signal or a ton of stability from that, especially when the plane is in motion. Whereas this is where Starlink can come into play, and now we could start potentially sharing around a gigabit or so with everybody on the plane, and that could result in the speeds for when you are flying to be a lot better. Remember planes? Remember when we would fly around and stuff? That was back in the old days. Scott S3, thank you for the Twitch Prime for 28 months. Holy cow, that's a long time. Thank you. He said, Starlink is so cool. Even if you have good internet now, the reassurance of knowing you can you can move almost anywhere on the planet and have decent internet. I agree. That opens up all kinds of possibilities that I feel like people don't truly understand the potential of. Like just the ability that people a lot of the time right now have to work somewhat nearby certain places. They got to be near their business. They got to be near their employer. They have to go into a building. And I think the pandemic has kind of accelerated this transition point. But I do think in the future, there's going to be a lot more work that can be done remotely that does not need to be required. Oh, you know what I realized? I'm sorry if there's frame drops. I was recording the podcast and I think I messed around with the bit rate a little bit. I'm going to put it back to what it was beforehand. Maybe that'll stabilize the stream a bit. I don't know. But yeah, there's this like dated business model that everybody has to work together. Everybody has to be in the same room. And that may be true for certain positions, but I think that as time goes on and we run into more issues like we did with the pandemic, more businesses will start to think more about like where, what can be done remotely with so much of our job being like work on this computer, communicate with these people, which you can kind of do as long as you have a decent internet connection. And that's what Starlink is bringing to so many different places. So to the idea of, you could be working for a company in the Bay Area, but you could be in Alaska because you have fast enough internet speeds to work with. That opens up all kinds of opportunities, especially when certain businesses in certain climates are willing to pay a certain amount. But that type of living, especially in the Bay Area, being so expensive, real estate prices are so high. But if you are willing to work out of some place where life is much cheaper, cost of living is much lower, but get paid the salary from a company that's based in a more rich, higher pay climate, that would be that opens up so much possibility, because now if you are willing to get paid less, I mean, obviously it'd be great if you could get paid more, but if your cost of living is lower, suddenly businesses can hire people from further away that can do the same amount of work as long as they're connected and they can have a solid connection and fast enough speeds that they can even send high bandwidth files. There's so much potential there. That's huge. Mike says works for putting Starlink on Cybertruck, as the flattish dish could be integrated to the hood and reduce frunk space a bit. I don't know if the hood would be a great spot. I mean, technically possible, sure. But at the same time, the Starlink Dishy McFlat face, as they call it, which is just this big flat pizza dish I have on my roof now. You probably want to put it in a place that isn't super obvious. I was going to suggest more like near the bed of the vehicle. I guess there's a vault door there, but I would say more where the kind of the back panoramic, not panoramic, but the glass roof for the people in the second row, it could probably integrate into that pretty well because less people are looking straight up back there. Whereas the front, it would just make the Cybertruck kind of look weird to have like a giant white circle right on the front of the whole thing. I don't know. It would technically work, but it would probably be kind of awkward looking and people wouldn't like seeing that just giant white dot on the front of the car. But if you don't care about the aesthetics, I mean, who cares, right? Like, do what you got to do. Neam Regan donated 50 bits. Thank you very much. Says, Drew, how's Starlink going? I currently have 5G gigabit home internet with Xfinity, but it's $300 a month for 1,200 megabits. So I'm confiscating. You mean contemplating? He's not confiscating. That doesn't make sense. He's contemplating switching to something more affordable, but want to know if Starlink is good since I don't have any family with it. I can't ask them. So Starlink's been working pretty great for me so far. Obviously, there are a few shortcomings, but it is in beta right now. That's the main difference that I feel like people don't quite understand with my decision. The Game Cousins asked earlier, did I get rid of Comcast? We have now. For us, it is official. The decision has been made. The coax cable that came into the house has literally been cut. So we're not going to switch over to Xfinity without a service technician showing up in the first place. But the main thing I think people miss is that Starlink is getting better. In fact, tonight, I believe, there's another 60 satellites going up. In another week or so, I think, once again, they're going to send up another 60. So every time they do these launches, the service gets more stable and the speed gets faster. which is why I think it's very underrated, because there's not a lot of internet service providers that are saying things like, we're going to provide double the bandwidth by the end of this year to everybody who signed up, which is pretty amazing. So the issue, obviously, with the beta right now is not so much the speed. I'm actually pretty happy with the speed. When it's on and it's working, it's fine. It's just the reliability that needs some attention, that could use some work. So I can do live streams like this okay, but obviously you do notice some frame drops. There will be some occasional lag. And the thing is, it doesn't take long. Like, if it does drop signal, it'll come right back, usually within a second or two. And this is fine for things like uploading videos, because you don't need a consistent signal the entire time. If it drops out every few seconds, it's not the end of the world while you're uploading. Or even watching a movie. We watched, I think, like 3 or 4 movies yesterday. We took the day off, and we've been watching a lot of TV. Or when you're watching YouTube videos, it's loading the video as you watch it. And if your signal drops for a few seconds, you've still probably loaded enough of the video that you can keep playing, and then when the connection gets back, it'll keep loading the rest of the video. So watching movies and streaming TV shows with StarLink is fine. I haven't noticed a difference going from a gigabit plan with Comcast going to a non-gigabit plan with StarLink. Obviously, they don't have tiers right now. It's just StarLink. And watching movies, watching YouTube, uploading videos, not like a super noticeable difference. Uploading is a bit slower for now, but it will get better, I'm sure. I don't really foresee a way it can get worse over time. It can pretty much only get more stable as they put up more ground stations, more servers for their satellites to bounce off of, more laser connectivity technology they're prototyping, which the end goal with StarLink is to eventually get gigabit. I don't think that'll happen within the next year, but eventually they want to keep getting it faster and faster. So it's certainly, like, I get why they call it a beta right now, because the connection isn't super reliable. It's like, when it's there, it's fine, but then when it dips and comes back, obviously that can interrupt a live stream, where you need a very, very steady, very, very stable connection that doesn't interrupt. You don't have to remind me. I can see the frame drops in OBS. It tells me exactly when I drop frames. So I know when it happens. I'm just like putting up with it, because as long as you guys can still hear me, and as long as people can still watch, I don't really care if I freeze up now and again, because to me that doesn't completely ruin the point of the stream. So there's brief cutouts, yeah, but it's definitely a lot cheaper than $300 a month, that's for sure. Matt Apple 941 donated 100 bits, says, "Hey Drew, have you seen the MagSafe battery?" I've seen the references and iOS code for it. I've seen it talked about, but I don't think anyone has technically seen it. I think it's still in the prototype / unreleased sector for now. So it's all speculation and leaks at this point. But yeah, it's not official. Hopefully it happens, though. I'd like to see one. Jordan Osterberg, thank you for the Twitch Prime. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Probably didn't, but thank you. Are you going to sell your iMac Pro now? It's end of life. Well, I won't sell it until I have something to replace it with. I'm still torn on selling it, just because my wife has expressed interest in keeping the iMac Pro around, just because whatever we could sell it for, whatever the trade-in value is, would not be great. It would probably be around $2,000, which obviously, I mean, it's an Intel Mac, so kind of the issue I've run into is I'm kind of on the side of trading it in, because I know that's kind of guaranteed. That's through Apple. But we'll probably talk about this more on the next tech podcast. But Randy recently traded in his iMac, and Apple said he would get something like $400 for it. And then once they received it, they only gave him like $100 for it. So now I have a feeling the Apple trade-in estimate is not entirely accurate. Oh, wow, you actually pronounced it correctly. Usually nobody gets it first try. Yes, I got it first try. I feel accomplished. But yeah, so now when I see the little trade-in credit on Apple's website, I don't really trust it anymore, because Randy got a quarter of what they said he was going to get, which kind of ticked me off. And my wife is like, I bet we could sell it for more than $2,000. And my argument has been kind of, honey, with the transition to Apple Silicon, by the time the new redesigned iMacs come out and they have the new processors and they have way less bezels and no chin, no one's gonna want an iMac Pro anymore. I feel like that the demand for them and the price people are willing to pay for them is probably going to drop, which is why it might the price might drop so low that I would rather just hold on to it and have it as like a secondary Mac than sell it for something so incredibly low that it hardly puts a dent in my next iMac purchase. So right now I'm gonna say no. I'm guessing they're not going to. That's my prediction. We're not going to. But things could change. I mean, if someone offered me a really good deal on it, I'd be willing to depart with it. At first, I was initially like, no, I'm never going to sell my iMac Pro. I love it so much. I want to keep it forever. But then after a while, I thought more about it. And I was like, it's probably going to reach a point where the new iMac comes out and this one looks so dated and so ugly that I don't even want to look at it anymore. Right now, it's like, I still believe this is the best iMac Apple's ever made. I don't think any of the newer, even though there's faster iMacs now, like I know the 2020 iMac got some Intel and CPU boosts and some new GPU options and stuff, but the I/O is still kind of crappy to me because it only has 2 USB-C ports. Even though you can get a MacBook Pro for like $1,500 that has 4 USB-C ports, the new iMacs only have 2, which is a bummer to me. iMac Pro has 4 and 4 USB-A, so the I/O is great. The cooling system is much, much better. On the older iMacs, I've used those before. They only have one fan to cool the whole thing. So whenever you do something even slightly power intensive, the fan kicks in and it gets really, really loud. I owned one of those for a couple years, and my buddy of mine in the Air Force still has a 5K iMac, and they get so loud, whereas the iMac Pro can just be completely quiet. The sound system's way better. The webcam's way better. Just as a complete package, I know that there are technically faster processors than what the iMac Pro offered now, but I'm just saying, as a complete package, iMac Pro is still the best iMac they've ever made. So that's where I'm at on that subject. Let's see. What if future Tesla cars can have a satellite on top and you can have internet everywhere you go? So yeah, this is something I also wanted to address. It's not as simple as just put a satellite on top of your car, because as we've discovered with the stability of StarLink, you kind of have to put it in a way that it's not going to be obstructed by anything. So if there's a lot of trees surrounding your house and you don't have a clear view of the sky, you're not going to have a very stable connection. And cars are moving all the time and going under stuff and over stuff. It means you would instantly lose signal as soon as you went under a bridge or in a tunnel or in the Boring Company tunnel. I guess you won't have cellular there either. But my point is, the terminal is so large, like Elon said, that putting it on something like a Model 3 or a Model Y, it would look ugly and probably destroy your aerodynamics. And if you tried to integrate it into the ceiling, it would be an eyesore. It would become incredibly obvious that there's a satellite in the car. It wouldn't just. I think a lot of people have this assumption, which is a fair assumption. I don't mean to say this is rude or wrong for people to think this. I mean, it is wrong. It's just, I understand why they think this. But when I first talked to my dad about StarLink, he was like, "Is there going to be a way that you can access Starlink from your smartphone and it can start replacing like Verizon and AT&T towers and stuff?" It's like, well, no, because you would lose signal as soon as you went inside anywhere. You need like a direct line of sight of the sky, and you kind of have to be pretty precise about that. And there's ways you can miniaturize that tech. I mean, it's potential. There's potential in the future that you could shrink down the size of the terminal, but I don't think you could get to the point where it's just omnipresent and it's as accessible as cellular antenna waves, that you can just like walk in to a building and still have a connection. I don't think that's how it's going to work. A lot of people seem to think that's how it's going to work in the future. It's like, oh, this will be our smartphone connectivity in the future. I think it's meant to be a Wi-Fi only thing, and cars drive in a lot of places where they don't have a clear view of the sky. I mean, when you do, it'd be nice, but then as soon as you go under a bridge, you lose signal, or as soon as you drive through a shady area with lots of trees. I'm thinking of like kind of the windy roads you take to get to the ocean where I live. You would instantly lose signal there. So 4G, LTE, and even 5G connectivity are still going to be better for cars. Same thing with phones, which is why the main things Elon has said that they're planning on attaching Starlink to with vehicles are bigger objects that can attach a little dish and it won't completely throw off aerodynamics and it won't be much of an eyesore. It'll be attached to something that's kind of an eyesore anyway. He talked about putting it on trucks, which makes me think about having Starlink on the Tesla Semi, which is already kind of big, and you could probably... I've always wanted to do this. So here's your average Tesla Semi, just a little smaller. It would probably be really easy to integrate a little Starlink terminal on the top of something like this because, for one, from the ground, you wouldn't really see it. Not that the aesthetics of a semi-truck matter that much, but, you know, Tesla and SpaceX, they want to make it all clean and integrated. So you have a big object like this. Sure, there's going to be certain times you're under structures. So, like, if you wanted to stop at a mega charger with this thing and there's solar panels above it, boom, your signal's been lost. So it would occasionally work, but the thing is it could never really replace those situations where having a modem just for using standard cellular towers would work better. So it could at best be a backup. It would never necessarily be a complete replacement unless there's some type of technology I don't know about that Starlink satellites are going to be able to provide signal anywhere. Doesn't even matter if you have direct line of sight of the satellite, but I'm pretty sure that's not the case. I'm pretty confident that it has to be. You have to see the satellite, even if it's really, really far away, even if it's through clouds and rain and stuff. I don't see it happening. So cell towers aren't going anywhere. What Starlink is mainly going to be useful for is providing adequate Wi-Fi to places that need it. Let's see. Matt Apple donated 45 bits. He said John posted renders. Oh, so have I seen the renders? That's different. No, I have not seen the renders. Renders are different from the actual product. I think that's safe to say. Renders of iPhones always look very different from the actual thing. So, no, I have not seen those. Let's see. What did Mike say? Don't want to damage the dish in the bed area. Not too much room on the back cross member area. Could also color it the same as the stainless steel or something. You could try to color it the same, but I don't think you could ever match it quite right. The way the light hits the Cybertruck steel and the way the texture, the Starlink terminal, I don't know why, but when you see it in videos and pictures and stuff, it looks like it's a big flat slab of glass. It's not, though. It's like this hydrophobic canvas material. Having touched it and like moved it around, it's like it almost looks like paper. So you can imagine if you took like a gray sheet of paper and put it on the hood of your Cybertruck, it would still be quite noticeable. In my opinion, kind of throw off the design element. Whereas if you put it on top, on the glass part, I'm not saying put it over the vault. I'm saying put it above the vault, but kind of right where the back glass ceiling is for the second row. Not too many people would notice it. You could see it when you were on the inside, but from the outside, it would be kind of hard to notice. It would be pretty integrated. Just sell your iMac Pro and wait for Apple Silicon. I see no issues with that path. Yeah, I'll just sell my iMac Pro and make nothing for a while. I've come really, really close, for the record. I've come really, really close to buying a stopgap Apple Silicon product. I've thought really, really hard about getting an M1 Mac Mini and just using that until the iMacs come out, but every way I think about it, it all ends up costing more money, and I'm like, that's just going to take more money away from the iMac purchase. And the iMac Pro is really not that bad. It's still working. It's still doing everything I need it to. It's not really the limiting factor with my content production. So that's why I'm kind of like, let's just hold on to it a little bit longer. There's not a great way I could continue doing content production because the M1 is slightly slower to exporting than my iMac Pro. It's better in everything else, but when it came to the raw export tests, the iMac Pro is still faster than the MacBook Air, just by a bit. But obviously the M1X will beat the iMac Pro, I'm sure, in every metric, hands down, easily. And that's what they'll probably put in the iMac. Okay, Neam Regan donated 50 bits again, says, what would you say if Apple were ever to become a carrier, ISP, refrigerator manufacturer, and or TV media conglomerate? They kind of are. I hate my Samsung appliances because it doesn't work with iPhone and Siri, and honestly, I need a carrier If I didn't, I'd have an iPod, so I'd rather go directly to Apple. Why do I have to deal with Sprint's crap considering switching to Xfinity Mobile since Comcast leech off Verizon towers, which is confusing? Does Comcast not have money to become a carrier themselves? They have the money. It's just the profit margins is a lot lower. That's why there's a lot of I forget the term, sub carriers that piggyback off of other carriers, is because it requires a lot of upfront infrastructure and a lot of upfront cost to just start building your own towers. Let alone the real estate costs. You have to buy property and put towers on them. And the 3 or 4, I don't, do we still count Sprint? When is the merger happening? I don't know. Those carriers have fronted a huge amount of money on plenty of coverage, to the point that it just makes more sense for companies like Mint Mobile to rent out those towers, because that's a lot cheaper, and you're going to get probably the same amount of coverage or equal amount of service, despite having to front a fraction of the cost. I bet it's something like 1/50th the money to just rent T-Mobile's towers compared to having to build your own dedicated towers across the entire country or more. Way more expensive. So that's why I'm not expecting Apple to go into the ISP service. But if Apple wanted to, yeah, I want Apple to go into all kinds of different stuff. I'm not really in favor of them limiting themselves to just a few categories. Like, yeah, if Apple wants to make refrigerators, if they want to make internet service providing options, and they want to make a carrier option, I'm all for it. I love Apple's design philosophy. I love how simple they make their technology. I love how simple they make signing up and using. I love the Apple Card. I don't really care for Arcade or TV Plus or any of those other ones, but it's all personal preference. It's subjective. If there's a show on there, or a game on there that you like, or a news agency that you like on Apple News Plus, they've all got their perks. They've all got benefits. That's fine. But yeah, I'm just not into them very much. But the Apple Card doesn't cost me anything. In fact, it makes me money every month, which is why I like it. And I love how user friendly everything is. And that's part of the reason I loved Mint Mobile so much, was because we were on Verizon for as long as I've ever had a phone before Mint, and their app and their accounting and their billing and the passwords and their account managers and stuff was all so incredibly confusing, so frustrating to use, and so difficult to understand, especially. And I'm like me and Sam talked about on the last tech podcast, we're kind of tech oriented people. We're like tech savvy. We understand how most of this billing and services stuff work. Imagine how like older demographics or people of older generations feel when they get so many different passwords and account managers and stuff thrown at them. And just to get to your bill pay section, you have to go through all these advertisements on their website. They just make everything so confusing, and they'll start adding things to your plan without your consent. Basically ripping people off, which is what I loved about Mint so much, because it was just like, this is your account. You have one app. That's it. You don't have to have like 4 people attached to one account. You have one password. You don't have a billing pin and an account password and an authoritative user and a guest user. It was just like simple. It was very basic, very easy to understand, super simple to set up. Even if the coverage was a little bit worse, I was willing to put up with that if it meant that the billing procedures were a lot more simple. And the thing I loved about Mint was it was one time a year. You pay for your service once every 12 months, and then that's it. You don't have to think about it again. Whereas Verizon, I think they have an option for that, but still, I read on Twitter this morning someone who was just trying to have one someone was just trying to have one account, one line, one phone number to their Verizon bill. No other people, just themselves. And it was $107 a month just for one line, which is insanity. I don't even know how that's I don't even know how that's legal, to be honest. Anyway, let's see. We answered that one. Why do I have to deal with Sprint's crap? I mean, Mint Mobile depends on where you are, whether or not it's good or not. But for me, at least, it's been fantastic, and they're not paying me to say that. Okay, I did not switch to Mint because they reached out to me. I had a family friend that was using Mint, and they said that the service around where we live was pretty good. So Verizon's rates kept going up and they were super duper expensive. So we were like, okay, this is annoying. We don't like Verizon. They're frustrating us. Let's try something else. So I tried Mint, ended up working great. Service was fantastic. And the account and billing management and everything was super, super easy. Customer service was wonderful. The few times I have used them, they've been very responsive and very helpful. So when that happened, I was just like, okay, this is good. So I used them for a few months, and then I did a video on them. That video blew up, and now everyone thinks I'm a Mint Mobile sponsor. Mint Mobile reached out to me after I made the video and said, hey, thanks for making that. Thanks for recommending us. Here's a little thank you package. And they just sent me a box of merch and said, hey, we appreciate you. Thanks. And that's pretty much my only ties with them. So if it sounds like I'm mentioning them a lot, it's not because I have a contract with them. They offered me one and I said no, but I genuinely just heard from a friend that they were good. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. I wish Apple would do something like that. That would be great. I agree. If Apple wanted to become their own little carrier startup and have their own, piggyback off of T-Mobile or Verizon or something. Yeah, I think if you subscribe to Mint Mobile, you directly are supporting Deadpool, which is awesome. So if Deadpool 3 ever comes out, you can thank me for that. That was all me, by the way. You're welcome. When will you meet Ryan Reynolds? Tomorrow, I think we have a scheduled meeting. Yeah, that was sarcasm, by the way. Sorry. Some people probably take that seriously. All right. BenFiend78 donated 95 bits as iUpdate just released a video with the title Apple March 23rd event. This is it. Is it confirmed? It's not confirmed. I think people kind of overuse that term. To me, it's not confirmed. I only use the term confirmed when Apple says something is happening. I won't use the term confirmed from a leak or a rumor, even if it's very likely. That's what I did today. I posted today's video. What was the wording I used? I don't think I used confirmed. No, I said likely 2 more weeks until Apple's March event. So Kang is a very reliable leaker. He got like almost everything right about the iPhone event, which is why when Kang said that there will be a March event on the 23rd, most people are inclined to believe him. He's probably going to be right. I believe him in this case. And Gurman said there won't be an event on the 16th, but there would be an event in March. Apple likes to have it on a Tuesday. 23rd is a pretty safe guess. In fact, I think before even Kang brought this up, I predicted it on the Tech podcast. I was like, it's probably going to be either like the 16th or the 22nd or the 23rd. I mentioned a few dates. It's pretty easy to predict at the end of the day. So I wouldn't use the term confirmed until Apple sends out an official invite. They have not. They probably will a week from today on the 16th. That's just typically how these things go. So it's not confirmed, but highly likely is the terminology I would use. All right, I got to catch up on these here. Nox0501, thank you for the Twitch Prime. Appreciate that. AJV_25, thank you for the Twitch Prime as well. We have a lot of first-time Twitch Primers today. Thank you. That's nice of you. Mike says flat top of the smaller Semi can also support the dish as well. Very true. Integrate StarLink dish surface to the dashboard. It already looks like paper. To the dashboard of the Semi? I don't know if it goes through glass. You mean like the little blacks? I'm looking at the Semi now. I don't know if that'll work. I'm very curious what the different variety of shapes the StarLink terminal can be. Right now it's a big circle, but could you make it kind of rectangular if you wanted to? That'd be a good question for Elon. I don't see why not. Does it have to be a circle? Like in the future, when Starlink is so built out that the satellites are just everywhere, you don't have to like orient the dish in a specific way. You can just point it up in some way, shape, or form. Could you put the terminal like on this little black section beneath the windshield? I bet you could integrate it really well there and it probably wouldn't be noticeable. Up here for sure. That would be super easy. Integrate Starlink dish service to the dashboard. That's funny. Chris Norton, thank you for 300 bits. That's very generous of you and completely unnecessary. I hope you know that. He said, have some bits. Drew, imagine owning a Tesla Semi. Like, that's really cool bragging rights. I know. It's my favorite Tesla. That's the one I want. It's going to be very expensive, but if there was a referral program to win a Semi, I would totally do it. AirPower was confirmed, so even if it is actually confirmed, doesn't mean it will actually show up. Yes. That's a great point, AJV. Yeah, even Apple said AirPower was coming out and it didn't. So that's the one I would say that's the exception though, to be fair. I don't think AirPower type announcements happen that often. I actually that was part of my argument for so long in 2020. So many people kept telling me AirPower's coming back, AirPower's real, because I read this report or I saw this leak or I saw this tweet that said AirPower's coming back. So many people kept telling me it's happening. And I was like, guys, Apple's not going to cancel it twice. So if it never comes out, you're never going to get confirmation. You just keep saying, oh, no, they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out. And part of the defense argument I used for no, it's not coming out, no, it's not coming back, was that Apple very, very rarely ever announces something and then directly, publicly cancels it. That's very rare. In fact, I went back when we were all up in arms and people were telling me, Drew, AirPower's real, it's happening. And I was like, no, it's not. I went back and looked, and there was hardly ever any instance I could find. I can't name you a single time Apple unveiled something, they announced it, and then a year later or a year and a half later said, actually, we can't figure out how to make this work, so we're not going to release it. In a public statement, okay? This was not like in some reply to some tweet. This was not in some like CNBC interview. This was legit. An Apple newsroom post. They came forward with a statement saying, can't reach our standard of excellence, so AirPower's not happening. That is so rare to the point that I feel like it was such a sore spot. It probably was bad press for Apple. It probably sounded bad because Apple was so boastful and so prideful about how AirPower is going to work, and no one else in the industry can make AirPower work, but we can. We're flawless. Our engineering team can figure this out. No one else can. They were so prideful about it to then backtrack and eventually say, actually, no, it's not coming out. It's a sore spot for them. It's like a bruised chapter in Apple history. And that's what made me think there's no way they're going to release it, because that would require them to acknowledge that they canceled it in the first place. And I think if Apple could have their way, if Apple had time travel, they would have gone back in time and never unveiled it in the first place. They would have been like, we don't want there to be history of us unveiling something that can't happen. So let's not make that mistake again. So I highly doubt AirPower was ever going to come back, even if there were some rumors of it coming back. Dashboard of Cybertruck for the Semi, just make it the roof for both versions. I don't know. I need to look at the Cybertruck. What do you mean the dashboard? You mean like inside the car? Because I feel like that would be problematic. Sorry, I don't have the Cybertruck ingrained in my memory. I need a very specific... Yeah, I don't know. The dashboard would be in the car. Then it would have to go through glass. I don't know if it can do that. Maybe it can. I don't know. I'm no engineer. Okay. Neum Regan donated $0.25. Thank you very much. He said, why don't you clickbait, Drew? I've seen YouTubers grow a lot from gaming the algorithm. It's not personal, just business. It's because I don't like clickbait, and I'm trying to make videos I want to watch, and I think YouTube has too much clickbait. It's funny. That's the first time I've seen someone been like, you should clickbait more. Trust me, there have been lots of opportunities I could have, and I didn't. If I was willing to clickbait, I would be so good at it, for the record. Like, there are so many great names I've thought of for videos or thumbnails I've thought of that I was like, ooh, that would be so wrong, and it would do so well. But it annoys me. When so many YouTubers clickbait and make deceptive titles or deceptive thumbnails, it bugs the heck out of me to the point that I don't want to watch them anymore. So I don't want to become a content creator that I wouldn't watch myself. So that's why I don't do it. Scott asks, are you going to upgrade your iPad Pro this year if we get new ones later this month? My 11-inch 2018 Pro is still great, but I'm considering upgrading if it's compelling enough. My guess is no. But I am not going to throw out the idea because I want to see the mini LED iPad Pro. We've been hearing about mini LED for so long. The rumors and leaks about this mini LED iPad have been around for over a year now. I think I remember reading about it in 2019 or early 2020. I remember reading about eventually getting this like OLED like iPad Pro with this new under display, not under display, it's a display, with like Pro Display XDR type tech being integrated into the iPad. I've heard about it for a long time, but I've never like really used, I don't think I've even used a tablet with an OLED display before. And I'm not crazy about OLED, to be honest. I mean, I acknowledge and understand its benefits and its drawbacks. And I've never seen mini LED before, which I believe is somewhat similar looking, even though the tech is very different on the inside. The way it's manufactured is very different. Fundamentally, it's a completely different type of display than OLED, but it provides benefits similar to what OLED provides. So if I try it out, I'll definitely get one. I'm not going to skip the review, of course. I'll definitely pick one up if they unveil it, which I think they will. It's most likely going to happen just in about 2 weeks. And it sounds like it's only on the 12.9-inch variant. My only hope is that I can still use this keyboard case. I can confidently tell you that if they say that the new mini LED iPad Pro doesn't work with this keyboard case and you have to buy another $350 one, it's a hard no. It's an instant no, because it's already going to be kind of a push for me to buy another $1,000 iPad just so that I can have a slightly better contrast ratio or better dynamic range, which is not a huge selling point to me because the iPad Pro from 2018 is still wonderful, and I've never complained about the contrast ratio or dynamic range of this display. I've never had it as an issue. I've never been in a situation where I'm like, the blacks aren't black enough, the pixels aren't all the way off, or this display doesn't get bright enough or anything like it. It's not been a problem. So it's hard to justify $1,000 upgrade. If they turn it into a $1,500 upgrade, then I'm going to be like, yeah, no way. But if it does work with this keyboard case, I'll think about it and try it out myself and see if it makes differences. What would be a hard yes, if you really wanted to switch me over to the next gen iPad Pro, it would be bringing some type of software exclusive, which some people are speculating is going to happen. I haven't seen a lot of leaks about it, but if people are like, the next gen iPad Pro has an A14X chip, which is basically just the M1 chip without the Thunderbolt controller. It's really, really fast. It's about as fast as the M1 Mac. And now you can do Final Cut Pro on the iPad. And it had the extra RAM or whatever. They put 8 gigs of RAM in this next gen iPad Pro, and that extra RAM will allow it to edit high-res content and stuff. That would almost completely sway me over. So if they announce some kind of software exclusive like that, that's when I would be like, okay, yes, I definitely want this. Probably sell this off to help pay for the next one. That would really, really convince me. So I would say it depends on what happens. The spectrum is if they announce some type of Final Cut Pro exclusive, it has to be an exclusive. If they announce that I can also get Final Cut on my old iPad, now I'm less interested. But if it's only available on the new iPad and the mini LED benefits, and it still works with the keyboard case that I have already, then I would want to buy it and keep it. If there's no Final Cut exclusive, but it still works with the keyboard case, then I would be like, I'll try it out, see if I notice the differences. If the differences are minor and I can't tell, then nah, I'll send it back. But if the differences are noticeable, because to be fair, I've never even seen a Pro Display XDR with my own eyes. Mostly because of the pandemic, and they don't have them at every Apple store. My closest Apple store didn't have one last time I went there, but that was over a year ago. So it's possible that maybe when I get the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, I look at it and the mini LED and all its glory, and it looks so beautiful and the colors are so gorgeous that I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't go back. It could be like a 120 hertz. That was something I didn't know I cared about at first. I had heard of displays going over 60 hertz, but I didn't own one. But then when I first got that iPad Pro in 2017 that had the 120 hertz, I took it out of the box, and as soon as I was just setting it up, just like going through the Wi-Fi settings and entering in my Apple ID and all that, I was just like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. I love it. I can't let it go. I can't put it down. If I have one of those moments with mini LED, I might keep it. But My guess is I won't, because my prediction, hearing reports that Apple wants to switch to OLED after mini LED, makes me think, okay, it's probably not that better anyway. And I know what OLED looks like on my iPhone, and it's fine. I would rather, to me, what's more noticeable is thinner bezels, which OLED allows for, which I'm thankful for. But I used the iPhone 11 for a while, and I used the iPhone 10R for a few months even. I think I used the 10R for like 3 months or something. LCD doesn't bother me really. A lot of people can't stand LCD and need an OLED. I've never been that type of guy. I would rather have 120 hertz LCD than 60 hertz OLED. If that meant not having as inky blacks or having as bright a display, I'd be like, who cares? I get 120 hertz. So it all depends on what they do. So I might keep it, but I would say most likely I won't. From what I'm predicting will happen, from what I think will happen, it doesn't sound like it would be a worthy upgrade for me. And I don't know, things could change. I didn't think I would keep the Series 6 either, but then someone gave me a really good deal on my Series 5, to the point that it almost covered the cost. It over covered the cost of the Series 6. And I was like, okay, why not keep it? I doubt I'll be able to sell this iPad Pro to cover the cost of the next one. But if it can put a big enough dent in it, if I could sell this for 600, $700, then I'd be like, okay, so it's like a $300 upgrade. All right, why not? I skipped the last iPad Pro upgrade, so why not do a double jump instead of a triple jump, I guess. But there's so little bad things I have to say about this iPad. It's so good. And to get another one that's almost just like it would be, I don't know, kind of financially irresponsible and kind of unnecessary. But I'll definitely review it, that's for sure. AJV says micro LED is the real future of displays. It has been the future for a long time, but it has never been the present, unfortunately. Micro LED has perpetually been the future. I remember talking about micro LED in 2017 of like, oh yeah, someday they'll figure this out. Someday we're going to use micro LED on our products. It still hasn't happened. Here we are, 2021. It's still like, oh yeah, someday. So I'm like, whatever. Let's see. Niam Regan donated 69 bits. Nice. He said, what are your thoughts on Tesla for being the forefront of electric trains and making U.S. infrastructure on par with other Western nations, as we're slacking American currently right now as a poor guy with a Gucci belt and we used to be kings? I don't know. We let Europe surpass us. Electric trains. I feel like trains wouldn't work as well in the United States. Probably because of their upfront cost. And the layout of the country is built more around people having cars, less so than public transport, which works a lot better in other countries that are a lot more packed, more densely populated. That's where trains work really, really well. Places like Japan or Korea or United Kingdom. In the United States, it would require a huge upfront cost of money, and it probably wouldn't pay off very quickly because a lot of people wouldn't be interested in it, and a lot of people prefer to drive themselves anyway. So it's just kind of different climates, different cultures. That's likely why Tesla hasn't put much effort or energy into developing the train or an electric train of any kind. I think he would be more interested in a Hyperloop, but that's kind of the same thing. Radio waves go through clouds. Windows shouldn't be too much of an obstruction. They do, but I wonder, I don't know. They're not a solid, I wonder if I took a giant sheet of glass and put it over my StarLink, what would happen? I'd be curious. Jordan says, if you're referring to Apple Roseville, yes, it doesn't have one. I believe the nearest stores in the area would either be San Francisco Union Square, Infinite Loop, or the Park Visitor Center. Yeah, I've been there before, but it was like 3 or 4 years ago. And obviously, because of the pandemic, those have been shut down a lot, or you have to have an appointment to get in. So I haven't really had the opportunity it's not been super crucial to me to walk into an Apple store and look at a Pro Display XDR, but I've been told it looks incredible. But my guess is I would look at it and be like, it looks okay. Let's see. It'd be about $250 to $350 for me, according to Apple's current trade-in value, and I want more than 64 gigs, so the storage may be the reason I upgrade anyways. Yeah, I mean, they've already updated the iPad Pro from 2020 with 128 gigs of storage by default. This one was 64. So I'm kind of with you there, Scott. I wouldn't mind a higher storage iPad, but honestly, I mainly use this for making video thumbnails, which aren't very big files. So I haven't filled it up. Like, what am I using right now? Let me look. iPad storage. I am at, it's calculating. It's A12X. Oh, I'm only about halfway full. 28.9 out of 64. So I have quite a lot more storage left, but obviously it would be nice if there was more. I wouldn't be mad. That'd be cool. What wallpaper am I using on the iPad? I don't know. This is one of the built-in ones. I'm not sure what it's called, but that's what it looks like. It's built into all of every iPad OS, every iOS, I think. If you just go to choose new wallpaper and check stills, they have a few of these. They change with dark mode, which is kind of cool. So that's with light mode. Mine adjusts with the day. So when you turn on dark mode, it's like becomes nighttime, which I like. But yeah, that's about it. It's nice. I probably change my wallpaper too much. I like changing my wallpaper like every couple of days, actually. Uh, Scott agrees with me on the Magic Keyboard. He says, I hope they don't short the 11-inch on mini LED. I love that size and won't go 12.9-inch because then I'd have to buy the Magic Keyboard for that. Hopefully it's like millimeter wave 5G where Leaker said only one is getting it, and then they all did. Yeah, I hope that's it, but I feel like the display... Did I just turn into an Australian? I hope the display supply chains would be more honest about that. I feel like there's a reason. If you wanted to say mini LED was coming to the iPad Pro, that would have been a lot easier to say. Would have been very simple to just be like, oh yeah, mini LED is coming to this year's iPad Pros. But the fact that they are choosing very carefully the wording, mini LED is only coming to the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, I feel like that says something. I feel like that they probably haven't found a way to make it that small yet or that thin. I know that the 12.9-inch iPad Pro this year is rumored to be a tad thicker, just a little bit more chunk. So if that's the case, then yeah, I'll hope the rumors are wrong. Obviously, I would like a 11-inch iPad Pro to be mini LED as well, but I feel like that would have come up by now. I feel like they would have brought that up. Mike said electric trains / metros would be fantastic platforms for the swappable battery concept with solar panels at each stop, major waypoint. It wouldn't be a bad idea. In theory, it would work very, very well. It's just in price swappable battery stations for Neo even are extremely expensive. I can't imagine how expensive it would be to do on a whole train. Making enough batteries is the biggest limiting factor of any EV company right now. So going straight to the giant train, giant batteries, and then having excess giant batteries that you have swappable. So yeah, if you plan it out in your head and just say we have these batteries and they swap here and the drives here, yes, it's very simple. But when it comes to, okay, who's going to pay for all this, that's when it starts to fall apart. So that's why I don't really see it happening. But yeah, if a giant bag of money fell from the sky and paid for all that, that would be great. That would be wonderful. Jordan says, I saw the Mac Pro plus XDR display in San Francisco, and it looked good, but it really is just another display at the end of the day. Unless your work was extremely color critical, it's just a big flex. I'm guessing me and Jordan are going to be the same on that. See, Randy and Nick got to see it in San Diego, and they were telling me on the podcast, they were like, Drew, it justifies the cost. If you look at it, you will understand. It was the most beautiful. It looked like a window into reality. It was like this amazing color. And I was just like, there's only a certain amount of blue I can tolerate on a pixel. Like, I feel like I've used a lot of monitors in my day, and they all kind of blur together to me. They don't really come across as much night and day differences. Bezels make the biggest difference to me. The border of the display makes a much bigger difference than the display itself, in my opinion. My biggest complaint with my iMac is just the thickness of the bezels and the chin. If they could slim all that down but kept the exact same display, I think it would look amazing and it would be super futuristic, which is why I'm so pumped for the iMac. I'm not pumped for the iMac because it's going to be a higher resolution or it's going to be mini LED. That kind of stuff I don't really care about. It doesn't really bother me. But the fact that it'll look thinner and more modern and it won't have all this wasted space all around the edges. Look at this. It's about from the top of the display to the edge of the Mac. It's about that thick. It's like a solid 3 inches of bezel on the bottom. It's pitiful. Disgusting. Chris Norton 2000 donated 100 bits. He says, I prefer driving, but I can't, so public transport for me. I'm sorry you can't. That sucks. I'm sorry, public is the way you gotta go. Some people really like public transport, though. It's a lot more well built out in places like Europe and Australia and Japan. They have really solid public transport. What do you want in iOS 15? I want the death of pop-ups. I still hate that it happens even when you're charging too. Like whenever your battery gets low, it's like 20% left. I'm like, make that a notification. It should just be a little drop down thing. It should be like a stop what you're doing. You can't interact with the display unless you address your battery has gone down. Same thing with like if it wants you to re-enter your email password and settings, they like make you stop what you're doing. Stop, go to settings right now. Or like if your iCloud storage fills up, that happened to me the other day. It's like stop. It's like pop-ups are stupid. I hate pop-ups. Also, I want Siri to not take over the whole display. I know they've addressed that on the iPad, but you asked about iOS 15. So I'm saying bring that to the iPhone. Siri should be built into notifications, not at the bottom. I don't want... Here, let me grab my phone. I feel like the bottom of the display is usually where you're typing. What my dream would be is like typing while you're texting someone, and then you're using Siri at the same time. You're like, Siri, give me directions to this place, and you're texting, and it's like, okay, I set that up in Maps, and it's just a little drop-down text thing. It's not like a take over the entire screen interaction. It should be an assistant, which means you can do whatever you're doing, and the assistant can do whatever she needs to do. She doesn't need to override everything you're doing. What else? Someone did a really good iOS 15 concept video. I don't remember who it was, but I watched it, and I remember agreeing with all of it. There's all good ones. I've seen a million good ideas. I don't have a bunch of stuff like specifically in mind for iOS wish. It's honestly pretty solid right now. I don't really have many complaints with iOS 15. I mean 14. I'm excited to get 14.5 where I can unlock my phone with my watch. I want them to do that with more things, It should be able to do that even without a mask. It should be like, oh, it's the authorized user. I mean, they're willing to let my watch unlock my Mac. Why can't it unlock the phone? Even who cares if I have a mask on or not? It should just register. If someone unlocks it who's not supposed to, I can just tap the watch again. Be like, lock. Easy. Problem solved. Do you use dark mode full time or do you keep it on auto? I think I keep it on auto. Sometimes it gets old. Actually, on my 12 mini, I think it's on at all times. But on my iPad, it's auto. Sometimes light mode looks a bit more clean. It looks a little nicer, especially if you're outside in direct sunlight. Dark mode doesn't look as good. But, yeah, for the most part, it's auto. Do you plan on uploading in 4K again if you get the new iMac Pro? I don't know if it'll be called iMac Pro, but I don't plan on stopping uploading in 4K completely. There were a few variables that went into that. For one, it wasn't just StarLink, although StarLink kind of pushed me to that. I'd been thinking for a while because, I have these certain breaks in the day with my wife where when she's on break, I try to go on break and I try to finish a certain amount of content before those breaks begin. And I kept running into situations where I wanted to have the video, uploading by the time I went on break, but I couldn't because the video was still exporting. And I don't know if this is a software update or a bug or something, or maybe I'm just getting impatient. I haven't really been keeping count, but the exports when doing 4K at 60 feel like they're taking a little longer. It might be a placebo or something, but it just feels like the export time is taking a while. So the export is like 40% done, and then I go on my lunch with my wife, and by the time the export is done, I can't instantly hit upload, but I want to because that way I'm waiting and I'm on my break, but I feel like I'm still getting something done because a video is still being uploaded. So that export kept slowing. It felt like it kept slowing me down, and it's not like a huge problem. It's not like I'm willing to spend another $7,000 on another Intel iMac Pro that has an 18-core CPU just so I could export a little bit faster. Like, it's not that big an issue. I was just like, I wonder how many people would actually notice if I started uploading in just 1080p, like how many people would complain. So that's what I started doing. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start exporting at 1080. And obviously the Starlink upload speeds are a little bit slower than Comcast. So once I finished a big 4K at 60 export and then I started uploading, I was like, okay, this is taking a while. So I know Starlink will get better. And I did actually, my Mustang Mach-E video was in 4K at 60. That was one that I was like, okay, this isn't just a video of me standing and talking. This is a video of my impressions and getting some B-roll of the Mach-E that it was shot at 4K at 60. So I want to upload it in 4K at 60. So that one I did upload, and it was fine. I can still do 4K at 60. It just takes a bit longer. And in the past, whenever I was uploading time-sensitive material, I would always upload it at 1080. Like, if it was an earnings call recap, I would do it at 1080. Or if it was an Apple event recap, I would do it at 1080. Or Apple announced something, and it was about getting the video up as fast as possible, I would do it at 1080. So it was just like, if the iMac Pro could export way faster, then I would be more compelled to keep it at 4K, because even if the upload takes longer, if the export takes less time, then it's still a win. And I'm hoping that's what the situation is with the next iMac with Apple Silicon. If I can export way faster to the point that, okay, sure, the upload takes a bit longer, but the export's so fast that the amount of time it takes between finishing posting the video and finishing editing the video and posting the video, if that's still the same amount of time, I don't care if the upload on Starlink is a little bit slower. It doesn't really make a big difference to me. So yeah, that's why for now I'm experimenting with just doing 1080, because I can export so much faster, and I feel like I could get videos up before my lunch or before my break, and it feels like there's less time. The reason the export matters more than the upload is because the only reason I would be bugged by the upload taking longer is because I can't really, and this was a Comcast problem, this was not exclusive to Starlink, but I can't really live stream and upload at the same time. They require too much bandwidth, and if I live stream while I'm uploading, the upload takes forever and the live stream suffers bandwidth. So it's until I get, 100 up or gigabit upload, which would be great. I don't know if Starlink will ever hit that, but even if it was just like, I could probably do it with 60 up or 70 up. If my upload improved enough that I could live stream and upload at the same time, that would be great. But even with Comcast, I couldn't do live streams while I was uploading, or it was not worth the time, not worth the issues I would run into. Whereas the reason the export time is a bit more of a bottleneck is I cannot edit a video while I am exporting a video. So the longer it takes to export on Final Cut, then the longer I have to wait until I can edit my next video, unless I want to, edit on the Mac Mini for some reason, but I don't want to, because that's even slower. So the less time spent exporting, the more time I can spend editing. And then while I'm editing in the background, I can have a video uploading, and it takes a tad longer. So that's not a big issue. So that's why I've been toying around with 1080. A lot of people don't seem to notice. I haven't actually noticed anyone on the EV channel in the comment section complain about it, or on Twitter. No one brought up like, hey, I noticed your videos aren't 4K anymore. What's up? I noticed about 4 people on tech, which in the grand scheme of things is not that many. If you consider that majority of people are watching on mobile, and a bunch of people don't watch in full screen, and a bunch of people don't have adequate internet access that lets them watch at 4K in the first place, and a ton of people don't even notice the difference between 1080 and 4K when watching video. So I was like, how much time am I wasting just so that I can hit that 4K quality option? And who's actually appreciating that 4K quality option? So I stopped doing 4K, and 4 people complained. They weren't even complaining, for the record. They were just wondering what I was doing. They were just like, hey, I'm not seeing the 4K option in your recent videos. Why is that? It's the export times was the main reason. But I'm not willing to buy a little stopgap iMac Pro. Sam almost did. I don't know if he said that on the record or off the record. I think he said that on the podcast. But yeah, he said he came really close to ordering an 18-core iMac Pro for $7,000 or so that he could have those faster export times, but ultimately decided the resale value of any Intel Mac is going to tank soon once the new iMacs come out, and he's going to just wait for those. So that's what I'm going to do. Most likely, to answer your question, when the new iMac comes out and it has extremely fast export times, that's probably when I'll do 4K again. Or if it's something special, if it's a product review where there's a lot of B-roll that I shot and something I want to be slightly more cinematic, then I'll do 4K. But if it's just like, if we're just talking about something, and I'm not really showing much other than screenshots, like AirTags are going to come out in 2 weeks, and it's just me talking for 10 minutes or 6 minutes. I'm like, yeah, why does that need to be 4K? Honestly, will that make a huge difference? Who cares? 15 bits from Neum says, if we see you, are we allowed to come up to you in public? Do you take pictures with fans? Yeah, I've done it several times. I did it in the Philippines once, actually. Someone recognized me when we visited Louise's family there, which was cool. Don't be weird about it. I mean, I don't know if this has happened, but I think there was a time someone was just kind of taking pictures of me, but not introducing themselves. Just remember, if you recognize me, I don't know who you are. So if you just walk up to me and introduce yourself and say you like my video, yeah, that's fine. I have no problem with that. There was a few times I was with... Oh, it's raining. It's raining right now, and we're still streaming with StarLink. That's cool. Connection seems somewhat stable. Oh, that's interesting. This is, I think, the first time we've had StarLink in the rain, which is kind of cool. So if the signal drops, we'll know why. But yeah, I got no problem with people coming up to me in public, but I'm not in public very often. So it's kind of not, I can't remember the last time it happened. 1 bit from Chris Norton. Are you still doing more than 1 video a day? Yeah, I'm typically doing at least 2, most of the time 3. I'm shooting for 4 though. Most of the time 3, at bare minimum. If it's a busy day and I don't have a lot of spare time, I'll do 2. But 4 is the goal. I'm trying to do 4. This might stress connection speeds, but could you push edited file from iMac to Mac Mini and upload video from Mac Mini while editing another video on iMac? That doesn't stress speed tests. Stress connection speeds. Push edited file from iMac to Mac Mini and upload video. I don't see how that would save time, though. I can upload and edit a video simultaneously with one computer fine. That's not the problem. The issue is I can't export a video and edit a video at the same time. If you're exporting in Final Cut, well, I mean, you can, but it'll stop the export. If you start editing something in Final Cut, the export pauses until you stop editing, and then the export continues. So I don't know what uploading from a secondary Mac would do. I can upload multiple things at once. That's not the problem. It's just the editing multiple things. Do you mean like export a video with the Mac Mini? Because that would take even longer because the processor on the Mac Mini is very slow compared to the iMac Pro. Does YouTube Analytics let you see where all your fans are in the world? Yes, they do. It's mostly the US, but yeah. Do you think Apple will upgrade the Mac Mini with the M1X or M2 anytime soon? I really, really want them to, but I feel like they won't because the Mac Mini in most recent history has only been updated like once every 2 years. It's not even been an annual thing. Like before the 2018 Mac Mini, this one, it was pretty much untouched since like 2014, I believe. They didn't do anything with it for a long, long time. And then 2018 came around and they finally updated it. They gave it the Space Gray, they gave it the Thunderbolt ports, updated I/O, new processors, new SSD options. But people were near close to thinking they were about to discontinue it because Apple hadn't touched anything related to the Mac Mini in so long that people were like, this is clearly not high on Apple's priority list, so they're probably just going to discontinue it. But then Apple came forward. They were like, no, we care about the Mac Mini, and they released this in 2018, and then they did basically nothing with it until the very end of 2020. I think at one point they doubled the SSD option, but that was it. And it wasn't across like the whole SSD options. It was just like this was the default 128 gig SSD, which is pitiful. Like I have like nothing on here, and I struggled to install the latest version of Mac OS because there was barely enough room on the SSD. True story. I was like, I could not fit the next Mac OS on here, even though I put nothing on here. It was just, that's how little the storage was. So I think at the beginning of 2020, they decided that the default storage option was 256 instead of 128, but they didn't change anything else. They didn't change the higher storage configuration. They didn't change the processors. They didn't change the I/O or anything. And then obviously M1 Mac Mini came out, and that was a big refresh. And now the Mac Mini's an amazing deal, and I'd recommend it to a ton of people now. I was close to buying one because of how good a deal it was. And the idea that just a few months after that, they would then give it the M1X, I mean, maybe it's because it's their own chips and their own supply chains, they wouldn't mind refreshing it more regularly, but I don't know. I have a feeling they won't. I have a feeling the Intel Mac Mini is going to stick around for a while, and that's just going to be like their boot camp computer. You know how some people are like, no, I still need Intel because Apple Silicon won't let me do XYZ. I feel like that's why the Intel Mac Mini is still there, because it's obviously much slower and much worse than the M1 Mac Mini, apart from the I/O. So yeah, I don't think they will. I wish they would, though. It would be great if they updated the Mac Mini, make it even faster, or make it smaller, update the design, because the M1 Mac Mini has a really big chassis for what is actually being used on the inside. So is a refurbished Mac Mini worth it? I have a 2014 Mac Mini, and I'm thinking about it. 100% yes. I love certified refurbished. It's incredible. You can get great deals, and you still get a warranty from Apple. Everything I've bought from certified refurbished from Apple has felt brand new. They replace so many of the components to the point that you can't even tell it's used. I think refurbished has kind of a dirty word, dirty connotation to it. Whenever people see refurbished, they're like, oh, that means it's going to have a bunch of scratches and dents on it. Trust me, it won't. Best computer for processing power you can buy, I think, ever, was a certified refurbished base model M1 Mac Mini. It was like under $600 or something, and the M1 chip is incredibly fast. It's incredible. So that I would highly recommend. If there's any version of a certified refurbished product that you want to get yourself, do it through Apple, at least. Certified refurbished through other companies, I don't know. I have not tried that, but through Apple, it's very safe, very reliable. Highly recommend it. Let's see. Are the MacBooks good as far as longevity goes? I think so. I'm still using, me and my wife are still using her MacBook Pro from 2009. I think it's 2009, and that thing still works. It's not very fast, but it still works. I really wish Apple made a cheaper Mac. Would be great for emerging countries and students, I guess. Yeah, Mac Mini is basically that. For if Mac Mini isn't cheap enough for you, then budget iPad is probably the best way you could go. Do the M1 MacBook Air get too hot often? When I had it, no. It got warm, but not super, super hot. No, I could do pretty high intensive stuff on it, and it wouldn't get that hot. Pretty cool. Probably for the performance you get, it's probably the coolest running chip at that processing level. I did buy it from Apple, yes. I bought this Mac Mini from Apple. They say the trade-in on it is $480, but I don't trust it anymore after what happened to Randy. I don't want to have to package all this up and send it to Apple, and they're like, oh, we told you it was $480, but actually, upon inspection, it's only $100. Like, that would annoy the crap out of me. So now I'm really, really hesitant to do the trade-in value. Or if I do, I'd rather do it in person. I'd rather go to an Apple store and they tell me what it's worth, not mail it in and then they give me an email later. Running Rust makes the M1 Air hot. Yeah, it's not like you're going to hold the Air. Yeah, I guess it's going to run hot, but don't buy a MacBook of any kind if your main purpose for it is gaming. Games will make everything hot. There's not really a way around that. If you run a game on something, it'll get hot. Thinking of getting the MacBook Air, maybe the Pro, just because I don't know if I'll need the extra power one day. I wouldn't recommend it. The performance differences between the M1 Pro and the M1 Air are so little, and I don't think the battery life on the Air was great. I don't think the battery life on the Pro is that much better in the first place. So if you want my advice, I would say go with the Air over the Pro. The fan doesn't make a huge difference, and the Pro only has 2 USB-C ports. If it had 4, it would be a different discussion, but it's the same amount of I/O as the Air. Unless you just like really, really love the touch bar. Some people do. I love the touch bar a lot, but I don't know if I would put up with the MacBook Pro for it. Yeah, it's probably going away anyway, so you're best not falling in love with the touch bar. They're going to remove it at the end of the day. I thought the M1 Air was being sold for $899 in the refurbished section. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's limited supply. They don't have like an endless supply of certified refurbished, so it might not always be available. Let me check. Last I checked, there were so many certified refurbished MacBooks, probably because Apple's trying to clear out all of the Intel-based ones, but no one wants them, obviously, because everyone's just going to get the M1 variant. Yeah, there's a ton of Intel I can see. Look at this. Look at how many... It keeps loading. It keeps loading. It's still going. Still going. Look at all these cheese grater Mac Pros certified refurbished and iMac Pros certified refurbished. They're still really expensive. $11,000 for an 18-core iMac Pro certified refurbished. What's the most expensive certified refurbished? It's still going. I have not scrolled up yet. This is the Intel graveyard, yeah. Where they all go to die. Oh, that kind of reset itself here. Let me go up to the Mac. Oh, okay, it's not arranged by price, but I want to sort by M1. They don't let you do that. I want to be like, give me all the M1 Macs here. Kind of hard to find. Oh my God, they're selling certified refurbished Mac Pros that are $32,000. That's crazy. 45? And that's refurbished. This is not even new. This is a over $45,000 Mac Pro that's not even brand new. It's still certified refurbished. That's funny. Comes with the Afterburner card, 28-core Intel Xeon. I'm sure that's still pretty fast. There's no M1 Drew. They were there for a while. I remember tweeting about it. But I'm guessing because they're such a good deal, everyone bought them up, and now they're all gone, leaving only the Intel ones behind because no one wants to buy these things. No one wants the Intel Mac anymore. Disgusting. I'm trying to find one. I can't find any. I bet they're going to be... I think they're going to be on the certified refurbished page for a while. I don't think those are going anywhere. Buy yourself a Tesla at that point. Yeah, for real. Just you're trying to buy something that can edit your videos? Buy a car. It won't edit your videos, but I mean, it's a car. Come on. That is ridiculous. It says a lot about how expensive Intel is from a supply chain perspective and a just performance per watt. Performance per dollar comparison. Intel is so crazy, and I'm sure Apple Silicon is going to outperform every model of the Mac Pro within the next few years. It might not be this year, but perhaps by around this time next year they could be releasing the Apple Silicon Mac Pro, and it'll outperform the Intel one and be like way, way, way cheaper. That's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see that. Thinking of getting the MacBook Air, maybe the Pro, just because I don't know if I'll need the extra power one day. Yeah, I'd still say go Air. Apple does discounts for students. That's true. They do have an education discount, but certified refurbished is for anybody. Nothing wrong there. Man, it's now gotten really bright. It was raining for a while, and now the sun has come out. Weather is drunk today. Doesn't know what it's going to do. That's funny. StarLink's cool. I'm so excited. Yes, canceling Comcast was so frustrating, and so it still hasn't ended. I want to do a video on it, but it hasn't officially, like on our end it's been canceled, but Xfinity still thinks we want them. They won't shut off like our account or whatever. They still say we owe them money despite contacting them twice now saying, we don't want service. We're trying to cancel our service. Please stop billing us. We're not even using you anymore. And yet they still are like, oh, this is what you owe. This is your next billing date. Like, the whole cancellation process with Comcast is so ridiculous. They're like, you have to put in a cancellation request, and it takes several weeks for it to actually show up. So the customer support line literally tells you to ignore your current bill. That's what he said. His words. He was like, yeah, I know it says that you owe us $300, but just ignore that. It's very broken. I don't understand why you have to contact someone to cancel. Like, what's the big deal? Why can't I just go on a web page and say cancel services? No, you have to like call in. You can't just press a button on the website that says, I do not want internet anymore. And then on top of that, they make you... See, we wanted just internet. We never wanted cable TV. We don't care about cable TV. We just want internet. And yet they said they would charge us more. They said they would charge us more to just have internet. And it would be cheaper to get cable TV along with the internet. And I was like, okay, fine. If it saves us money, we'll get the bundle with cable TV, but we don't want to use it, whatever. So we had to get cable TV. So they had to give us this big cable TV box with this Comcast remote and stuff that we don't want to use. There's nothing on there we care about. And they make you plug it in and set it up. So we were trying to get Xfinity activated here when we first moved in. And we were like, hey, I plugged in the coax cable. I plugged it into my modem. I plugged it into my router. We're still not getting internet. What's the deal? They said, you have to plug in the cable TV box in order to activate your services. And I was like, I don't want to use cable TV. I just want to use internet. And they were like, doesn't matter. Just to activate the internet, you have to plug the cable TV in, which needs its own separate coax cable and everything. So we had to go to a different part of the house that had a coax hookup and hook up the cable TV, plug it in to a television, set it up, sign in on the television and everything. And then they activate the internet. We unplug the cable TV box, put it in a bag, throw it away. And basically we threw that bag in the closet and haven't touched it since we first moved in here. Haven't used it once. Don't care about cable. So then when we want to cancel our services, they're like, okay, you have to bring back the cable TV box and the cable TV remote. That needs to be returned because even though you've been spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on this service for 2 years, longer than that actually, we've been a customer since 2017, they're like, you don't technically own that, so you have to bring that to your nearest Xfinity location, and we have to mark it as returned. So we had to drive to an Xfinity location to give it back to them. That part was pretty easy, though. We wanted a return receipt. They wouldn't give us one because obviously I had a whole phone call with someone who was from Comcast. I called their number, their customer service line, and talked to a lady on the phone for 20 minutes to clarify, no cancellation fee, no extra bill. We're going to cancel the service right away. There's no extra billing that takes place. I recorded part of it. I didn't record the entire phone call because they put me on hold, so I just stopped filming. I filmed part of it, but I'm going to make a whole video about it because it was so frustrating. I was like, this is so messed up. Like the fact that you can have a whole conversation with someone, they tell you the service has ended, they tell you there won't be a cancellation fee, and then you go online and they're like, hey, your bill's ready. And that turns out that person you called in did absolutely nothing. They literally heard everything I said. They heard everything I asked and literally chose to do nothing. So because of that, when we returned the cable TV box and we returned everything they asked us to bring back, I was just like, can we get a return receipt? We want proof. We want evidence that we returned this. And the guy at the store was like, no, I scanned the QR code. There's a little code on the box. I have it authenticated to your account. It's been returned. Don't worry. And I was like, yeah, that's great. I want a return receipt. I want proof. I want something that says I gave this to you because I tried to have a whole phone call just a few days ago saying that I won't get a cancellation fee and there won't be any more bills. Later to find out there is a cancellation fee and they prorate the service at a higher rate. The lady on the phone I was talking to said I wouldn't get any other charges. I said, our bill's on March 2nd. Today's February 27th, and I won't have to pay for that next bill, right? Because we're canceling it now. So that means no more payments. And she's like, yeah, no cancellation fee, no more payments. Got nothing more to worry about. Chet in on March 2nd when we got the bill. And the guy's like, oh, there's a cancellation fee, and we're going to bill you for additional days. I was like, we weren't using the service. And they're charging us extra. Yeah, it probably would make a great skit. It would require some more actors and people, but either way, it deserves a tech video. The whole process of canceling Comcast, it's still ongoing. It's crazy to me that I called Comcast on February 27th, which was, I mean, it'll be close to 2 weeks ago this Saturday. And after all that, the service has still not been canceled because the cancellation request hasn't gone through yet. We're still waiting for the email that says, here's your final bill. Right now it says, oh, your service is past due. You owe us $300 or something crazy like that. I'm just like, bruh. It's the most frustrating thing. StarLink has it literally on the front page. I'm looking at my StarLink account right now. There's no balance due, which is kind of cool. They include the first month of service with your first order. So I guess the billing and equipment is more like $400 when you consider it that way. Because I haven't had to pay for the service yet, and I've used it for quite a while now. But yeah, like literally on the front page, I can't show you it because it has my account number and address and everything. But on the front page, it says StarLink, welcome Andrew Erickson, account summary. Here's your balance due. It says 0. And then it's like my orders, and it just has the StarLink dish. It's like, there's the address. And then beneath that, it says terms of service. And at the very bottom, cancel service. There's a big, bold button that just says cancel service if you feel like it. That's it. I'm not going to, but it's painfully easy. You should not have to call someone. You should not have to put in a cancellation request. It should just be cancel. That's it. Why does this have to be so complicated? ISPs need to be shamed. Too bad we can't hurt them financially. We can. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm intentionally trying to hurt Comcast. Although a lot of people probably think I made the wrong decision. There's probably people out there that are like, Drew, Comcast is faster. It's more reliable. You need to just use the best service possible. It's for your job. It's for work. Who cares if it's more expensive? You get money out of it. But I'm like, no. I want to vote with my wallet, and I do not want to support a business like this. And I can complain about them all I want, but that's ultimately not going to hurt them if I keep paying for them. So that's why I wanted to stop paying for them as soon as possible and get off their service, because that's truly, at the end of the day, the only way I can hurt them is if I just stop paying them. That's what we did. The account still says, like, balance due, you got to pay this much. And we're just like, you know what? We're just going to do nothing. What are they going to do? We're not using the service. We're literally like, the coax cable that comes from them has been cut. It's doing nothing. They have to notice our data consumption is at 0 now. It's not plugged into a modem. It's not being used by a router. It's just off. And we're not paying for our service. So we should basically just ghost them at this point. I don't know what they think is going to happen. We could turn your service off. Great. That's what I wanted. He tried. The reason I'm hesitant I recorded the whole conversation with the online chat. The reason I'm somewhat hesitant to post it is because he did try to say, like, what price is your next ISP offering? And he asked this after we set up StarLink and drilled the hole and got the coax cable all switched over and everything. So I'm like, I'm not going back. I don't even care if Comcast tries to entice me with some cheaper deal. I don't care. We've already set up StarLink. I'm not going to switch everything back. And he's like, what are you paying for StarLink? And I was like, less than Comcast. And he was like, sir, I can provide you a better rate if you tell me what you're paying for your next provider. And I'm like, I don't care because I know you're going to provide me with a better rate for a few months and then you're going to jack up the prices again. And I I didn't want to put up with that. I had already switched all my devices over. I had to factory reset all my smart speakers and stuff just to get it on the StarLink router. So I was like, no thanks. Don't care. I don't want your offer. It's not going to be permanent anyway. I have a question for you. Should I get a MacBook Air or a Mac Mini and an iPad Air plus keyboard and pencil? Probably Air keyboard and pencil with Mac Mini. That sounds more fun. I love the iPads. If it's possible to use an iPad instead of a MacBook, I will. Only time I get a MacBook is only time I use a Mac is when I need to do something that the iPad can't do. That's about it. Never doing Comcast. I've heard nothing but bad things. Oh, I know. They're terrible. I got the blue light for the tech videos working for a very weird reason, but that's a good story for another day. Basically, it needed to be set up with an old router. It doesn't like the StarLink router, but once you set it up with the old router, you can just turn it off and on and it will preserve the color. So now the old router is just turned off, but I can still turn the light on and it's still blue and stuff. So it's working now. Anyway, I'm going to get going, but I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Appreciate all the bits and all the Twitch Primes. There were a lot today. You guys are very generous. And I hope you have an excellent rest of your Tuesday. Take care, all. Bye-bye.